Professional wrestling is one of the most interesting and entertaining kinds of show you can watch. An intoxicating cocktail of sport, circus, theatre, comedy, and genuine bona fide death-defying spectacle. And because it uses such a broad variety of theatre styles and appeals to such a wide global audience, there's a lot we can learn from it. So in this video, we're going to look at 8 things that any performer, or any kind of artist really, can learn from the world of professional wrestling. Really? Wrestling? Half-naked people with stupid names wearing spandex rolling around? I don't think so. Well, yes, and that leads us to our first lesson. Number 1. Some people just won't like it. Don't waste your time and energy pandering to those who don't like the same things you do. Instead, reward those who do. Give everyone who shows interest in your work the absolute best you can. Instead of trying to prove the naysayers wrong, work hard to keep proving your fans right. If you keep doing that, more than likely some of those other people will start to wonder what all the fuss is about. But even if they don't, keep focused on those that get what you're doing. You nourish that community and they'll nourish you right back. Number 2, know your history. Wrestlers are really good at knowing the history of their art forms. They're experts at taking characters, storylines and ideas from the past and remixing them and developing them for something new. And that's what every artist does, whether they know it or not. Looking at the history of your discipline never fails to be inspiring. To find out about the lives, the struggles, the thoughts of those who did what you do in the past can help you feel part of an artistic lineage, part of a family stretching back. Is there something from the past that you can take inspiration from, develop, use as a jumping off point? I bet there is. Number 3, look outside your art form for inspiration. As well as learning all you can about your own genre, one of the best ways to make something new and original is to mix in bits and pieces from other bits of culture. The more unlikely, the better. Back in the days when everyone watched Western serials, there were cowboy wrestlers, but as times changed, so did the archetypes. When reality TV started dominating the ratings, vacuous, fame-hungry, arrogant idiots arrived, just begging to be jeered at by the crowd. When the UFC got popular, wrestlers started popping up wearing MMA outfits with their fists taped up and stories of competing in underground fighting tournaments. When Dancing with the Stars was a hit, there was even a ballroom dancing wrestler, and he was great. In my art form, the world of circus, one of the greatest jugglers who ever lived, Francis Brun, he took his passion for flamenco, fused it with his incredible juggling skill, and created one of the most in-demand acts the world had ever seen. The easiest way to make something new and unique is to introduce elements from elsewhere, and if those elements are meaningful to you, all the better. Take your culture or the things you love and let them take your work in a fresh and memorable new direction. Number 4, listen to your audience. In a standard wrestling match, there are 4 important people. The 2 wrestlers, the referee, and the audience. And they're all equally important. The 3 people in the ring know how important it is to listen to the crowd outside it. The cheers, the boos, the swells of encouragement and disappointment. The crowd helps to inform the art as it's being created and performed. It's like a structured improv game, and just like any improv, the key is listening. And it should be the same for any artist. If something is created for an audience, then you should pay attention to how that audience responds to it. Whether they loved it and they're hungry for more, or were confused by it, or just flat out didn't like it. Now, this is not to say that you need to do everything that your audience tells you to. You absolutely do not. But it's not smart to ignore them completely. Number 5, tell a human story. Let's say you go to a wrestling show, but you arrive a little bit late. When you get there, a match has already started. And there's cool moves, there's flips and drop kicks and dives, and then one person wins and it's fine. But let's say you watch that match from the start, but for the previous few months, you've also been watching all the storylines that led up to it. You know the two people fighting, their history, the betrayals, the twists and turns of the narrative that means they have to settle it face to face in the ring tonight. And suddenly the match means so much more, right? Because it's not really about the wrestling moves, it's about the storytelling. And that's true of whatever creative world you work in, whether you're an artist, a musician, a playwright, a video game designer, a circus performer, or a wrestler. Your skill set and what you bring to it will be unique, but you'll have one thing in common with everyone who creates or consumes art. You're human. So tell a human story. Using art to tell a human story is literally what art is for. Number 6, pay your dues. In the world of wrestling, there's a lot of talk about paying your dues. Old school wrestlers tell stories of travelling hundreds of miles and sleeping in their car just to get a spot on a small show and get paid enough for a can of tuna. Now, this sounds pretty awful for a bunch of reasons, and I am certainly not going to recommend you work for anyone who's just paying you can of tuna money. But the reason they went through those hardships was to learn, and I am going to recommend that you take any opportunity to learn, particularly at the start of your artistic career, but basically at any point. You never stop learning. Once, when I was young, I took a whole year of bad gigs. I mean, back then I was happy to have any kind of work, but these were bad gigs. Badly laid out venues, audiences who didn't really want to see you, long travel days, and crappy money. By the end of the year, I'd earned basically no profit and was feeling pretty sorry for myself. These days, though, my wife reminds me how much I learned during that year. I had to do an hour on stage, and at the start of the year, that idea terrified me. By the end, I could do it no problem. Now, of course, you don't need to suffer to learn something, but whenever you find yourself in a position where you're not having a good time, you're not going to earn much money, you're not getting much of a positive reaction to your work, there's almost certainly something to be learned. Number 7, be yourself, or at least a version of it. The thing about those cowboy wrestlers that I mentioned earlier is that sometimes they looked silly. I mean, occasionally there'd be some Texan badass who the audience could buy was a genuine prairie-hardened desperado, but more often than not, it just looked like some schmuck had been given chaps and a hat and told to say Yahoo. And audiences could spot it from the back of the room. Audiences are good at sniffing out authenticity. There's an old adage in the world of wrestling that the best performing characters are the real persona of the performer just turned up to 11. Stone Cold Steve Austin is basically a Texan redneck who likes beer in real life. Bret Hart is a serious-minded ring technician. The Undertaker really is an undead zombie mortician for, okay, it's not a blanket rule. But the point is, if you want your work to connect with people, then it should come to some degree at least from the real you. If you're being fake, people can usually tell, and aside from that, it means you're not doing the most interesting work you could be doing. It can be hard being completely authentic in your work, and it might require a little bit of self-examination, but you'll end up creating something completely unique because nobody else could have made it but you. Number 8, make everything mean something. I'm stealing this from my friend William Regal. I've heard him say this countless times to young wrestlers looking for advice, and it's as true for everything as it is for wrestling. I think when he says it, he means don't do moves just because you can do the moves. Be in the moment, be in a fight. In acting, it's called motivation, right? But it's also a good way to self-edit your work. I'll be using it when I edit this video. Maybe I'll find out that I used overly grandiloquent verbosity, but I doubt that I'd be so temerarious. Don't be scared to cut out the flashy stuff if it's not there for a reason. Keep moving, keep working, and the right opportunity will present itself, and then it'll mean so much more. If everything you do means something, then you're telling a more solid story, and you're telling it better. Thanks for watching. I hope that meant something to you. And if it didn't, I got 2 words for you. I'm sorry. If you did enjoy it, then please do subscribe to my channel and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All of my videos are supported by my backers over at Patreon, so as always, they have my gratitude. And if you enjoyed the stuff on my channel, then come and see me live, because that's what I really do. And if you don't come to my show, well, then you can't see me. I'm so sorry. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and that's the bottom line, because we've reached the end of the script. Bye.